is continually evolving. Today, we witness a shift in tourism paradigm.
And the cultural knowledge that we have is very important.
This one is an Ifugao Bulul that has been lent to us.
To silk screen. So what we need to do is just get the first layer, on the top layer, the measurement.
We will now make sure that you will not be consultant dependent, and you will now be able to put together your own museums with least assistance from the others.
Basic tools that we need to set up the studio. A camera that you're comfortable with, together with it.
Also, generally, museum staff are advised not to pursue.
In doing that, I'd like to focus on the two important words in that formulation, which is to curate and to exhibit. To curate is to...
So why are museums important? Because museums and galleries give us an insight into the history of humankind.
So even John Dewey, who is a prominent leader in
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 7 of our year 2 museum management training. Maayong buntag sa inyong tanan. We have a lot of greetings from Western Mindanao State University in Zamboanga City. Buenos dias a todos. Maayong buntag sa tanan from Jose Rizal Memorial State University in Katipunan Campus, and also from Bahay Chinoy in Intramuros, Manila. Okay, we would like to thank also our individual participants, Ms. Judeline Bundok from Adamson University, Regina Samson from Erewhon Center for the Arts, Mildred Monteclaro from Caraga State University in Cabadbaran Campus, Luella Lagbas from Museum Services Division of the City Government of Zamboanga. No, so we have a lot of participants. We are live on FB page of the Museo Kordilyera and also via YouTube. Okay, so last week we had a very interesting discussion on how to prepare your video for your exhibitions delivered by James Beltran and Fed Davino. For today and tomorrow, we have a very interesting topic on curatorial practice. No? And today we have Sir Patrick Flores, who's the Professor of Art Studies at the Department of Art Studies at UP Diliman, which he chaired from 1997 to 2003. Dr. Flores is also the Artistic Director of Singapore Biennale in 2019, and he is the current curator of the Vargas Museum in UP Diliman, and an adjunct curator of the National Art Gallery in Singapore. He has a very long list of exemplar curatorial work, such as the Under Construction, New Dimensions in Asian Art, the Gwangju Biennale in 2008, and was the curator of the Philippine Pavilion at the Venice Biennale in 2015. He is also the visiting fellow at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. in 1999, and the Asian Public Intellectuals Fellow in 2004, and a guest scholar of the Getty Institute in Los Angeles in 2014. He has very outstanding publications on painting history, revisions in Philippine colonial art, remarkable collection, art history, and the National Museum, and a lot. No? So there's a long list now of the works of Professor Patrick Flores. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Sir Patrick. Good morning po, sir.
Good morning, Ikin, and thank you for the invitation and also for the introduction. The topic, and good morning to everyone po, kung saan man kayo. Ang topic na binigay sa akin ay conceptualizing content for exhibition. So I'd like to look into those terms and walk you through some ideas around those terms, and maybe share a bit of my practice in relation to those ideas. So I'd like to share the slides now. So first we begin with the idea of conceptualization. So what does it mean? So I begin the discussion with this thing of an anxiety, that there is something in your mind that you'd like to flesh out curatorially. No? So for me, to conceptualize is to mind an anxiety, no? To address that anxiety, something that is in your mind or troubles you or you think you need to address through curatorial practice and through exhibitionary form. No? So we also have to think if it is the exhibition that can best address that anxiety, because it need not be an exhibition. No? It could be a publication, it could be a seminar, it could be a syllabus. No? So we have to decide on the relationship between that anxiety and the appropriate form through which it could be fleshed out. No? So anyway, granting that it is the exhibition that is the preferred form, then we have to think about the exhibition in relation to the anxiety. So we have to mind an anxiety to be able to conceptualize and to perform a process or condition of curatorial form. So what is the curatorial form for that anxiety? So we have to think through both the anxiety and the curatorial form. No? That is very basic, no, and formative. That is the formative moment of the exhibition, and I think you have to invest or spend time in trying to reflect on that, no, this phase of the process. So a concept is an intellectual proposition. So it is not a conclusion, no? It is a proposition. So exhibitions are not meant to be first and final word on certain things. No, it is a proposition among many. So it is an intellectual proposition. It comes from the mind, no? Which is provoked by an anxiety. So an intellectual proposition, an argument, a speculation, a reflection within the history of ideas, because you converse with this history of ideas, because ideas have been formed before you have been thinking of something, and also current debates now in society and also in the field of, let us say, art history or anthropology or whatever field you are in. So it is a proposition. So you're proposing, you're pitching an idea, or you are trying to foreground something that you think is important because it has been troubling you. No? It's been preoccupying your intellectual space, and you want to flesh it out curatorially through an exhibition. If you have decided that it is an exhibition that you need and you desire, so you think about it. But you don't only think about it. You think through it, around. So you think about, through, around, with material. Now, whatever material it is. No? It could be object, it could be sound, it could be moving image, no? Whatever it is. But you have to think about, through, around, with material. So you do not only think about it, you think through it, around it, with it. No? These are important prepositions that allow you to round out the material. No, you do not only speak on its behalf, you also speak through it, around it, and you also listen to the material and allow it to speak to you in all its formal and social dimensions as expressed in themes or issues. Now, themes or issues become the articulations of this process. No? So these are, like, in a way, would constitute the shorthand of the process, but beneath it is a more dense network of ideas. So it is an invitation also for a conversation. So there should also be a generosity from your part, to invite the public for a conversation. So to conceptualize is to invite a conversation. It is not to preach or to impose, right? It is to invite conversation, mutual learning, discussion, and discourse. So this is what is important. No? You're not there to pontificate. No? You're there to invite for a conversation. No? So you don't bully people to believe in you, but you invite a conversation. Initiate a process of mutual learning, discussion, and discourse. So there should also be a thought out. You have to think through the relationship with the medium of articulation, which is the exhibition. No? So as I mentioned earlier, it need not be the exhibition. The medium of the articulation of the anxiety need not be the exhibition. But if it is the exhibition, then you have to think through the relationship with this medium. No? Because it could be a documentary, it could be an interview, it need not be an exhibition. It could be oral history, It could be an essay, right? But why an exhibition? So if it is an exhibition, you have to think very well why you think it is the exhibition that best addresses the anxiety in your mind. No? And then you have to also look at the institutional capacity, what you can do within your within your institution, whatever it is. It could be, official museum of a town. It could also be an artist-run space. I mean, there are levels of institutionality. So you have to look at your capacity, what you can do for the moment. You don't overstretch, do not overthink, also do not try too hard. Now, just look at what you can do at the moment, because this is not the last exhibition in your life. No, so you have to think incrementally, and through scales. No? So maybe small, medium, large scale. Think of a scale in relation to your capacity. So don't think of let us say, show that rivals the Met in New York. No? I mean, it could be just a small one, which is as interesting as the one in New York, no? Or Tokyo, or Bangkok. So that is one, the institutional capacity, and also the curatorial imagination is important. No? So we have to also invest in speculation, in risking an imagination for the anxiety to play out with generosity and also with excitement. No? There should be joy in the exhibition. So that's why you have to invest in the imagination. Otherwise, you cannot inspire people to think through. It becomes some kind of a mechanical process. So the imagination is important in conceptualizing content, in an exhibition. So the second issue would be content. What is content? No? So we always look at content as opposed to form, but actually there should not be a binary opposition between form and content. No? They are intertwined. So content here, for me, is would constitute the chance and space of encounter with persons and things. No? So for me, that is already content. The fact that people are in the space and then they have the chance to encounter something, meaning it could be a material, or like a thing, or it could be other people looking at the thing. So this chance and space of encounter with persons and things would already form content. That is already content for me, because this is a unique opportunity for you to assemble, gather, convene persons and things in a particular space. Content also obviously would mean materials, no? Whatever materials you have, no? Ideas, of course, discourses, the range of sensible creative forms. No? So the range of sensible and creative forms would include art, maybe art, could be artifact, could be popular forms, everyday objects, and so on and so forth. No? So it depends on what kind of things you have. No? Content also is the exhibitionary form. So how does content figure in the space? So here we have to look at curatorial framework and method, and also design. How do you design the space in relation to the content that you'd like to put in that space? So you have to be conscious of exhibitionary form, because you have already decided that it is the exhibition that best addresses your anxiety. No? Again, it need not be. So, and then content also would include programs for public engagement, because the space requires that. No? In fact, it promises that. No? It promises engagement. No? So content includes program. So programs for public engagement like talks, publications, activities, the range, no? interventions, for instance, from artists, screenings, poetry readings, readings, seminars, reading sessions. Also, you can organize reading sessions. You read together and then discuss. There's a range, no? There's an array of possibilities for programs for public engagement, and that is content. This is not an aside or like some kind of addition. No? A program is central in content production. No? It is not just, it's not ancillary. No? It is central. No? Meaning that you curate exhibitions, and alongside exhibitions, the programs, the pedagogical, let us say, initiatives, no, to reach out to a broad public, because the space is supposed to invite a broad public, no, not only a specialized public, a broad public, general public, no. Of course, that includes specialists, but not only them, but those who are not even initiated to the field of art and culture. So, in fact, they are the more important constituency to some extent, no, because they are not the choir, no. So you should offer an invitation for them to be part of the community or the constituency of the museum or the exhibition. No? So you aspire to that broadness through a program that is exciting, that is also inviting and responsive to that broadness. And then content for me is atmosphere. It is atmosphere, the feeling that you sense when you are in the space. For me, that is content. No? So what feeling do you get? Is it generous? Is it inviting, hospitable? Is it hospitable? Is it thought-provoking, and so on and so forth. So what is the atmosphere? What is the imagination? So even if the facts are not accessible or the discourses are not too accessible because they are specialized, but the imagination must be triggered or provoked or incited, no? So when the person walks away, he or she would have gained that a level of imagination for him or her to pursue whatever it is that he or she wants to pursue in relation to the exhibition. So imagination is content, and of course context is content, meaning the context from which the materials come and also the new context in which they are found. No? Because the materials are from another context and placed in a museum. So the context, the previous context should be accounted for, should be part of the account. But there is also a new context, and this is your curatorial context, and it's definitely also part of the account. No? So these are contexts that have to be considered in elucidating content. No? So the next would be the exhibition. What is the exhibition? There are many definitions of the exhibition, but I would like to share the definition of Vasif Kortun, a Turkish curator, who said that an exhibition is a temporary, relatively sovereign space. I like that. It's temporary. It's not supposed to be, permanent, that it's there etched in stone. It is temporary, meaning it can change, it can shift, it can be subjected to modification or calibration. So it is a temporary, relatively sovereign, meaning free, autonomous, potentially disengaged from instrumentalization of, let us say, the state or the market or whatever ideological interest that is dominant in the milieu. So it's relatively sovereign space for, hopefully, experiment and reflection. So importante yung experiment and reflection. So there is risk, but there is also a pause to think through, but there is a risk to think beyond, no? Which puts art together, and we are looking at art here as material with a public. So as I mentioned, it is a chance and space of encounter. So the exhibition can bring forth new conditions. No? So this is the aspiration toward more just. So there is the ethical imperative, no? Toward more just, more tolerant, more ethical ways of being part of the world. No? So I think this is a short but inspiring definition of what an exhibition is. No? So there is the ethical imperative. There is also the possibility of experiment and reflection within a temporary and relatively sovereign space. Huh? So yeah. And then the next would be, all this would fall under curatorial care, because the word curator comes from that concept of care. So you care for, so there's the notion of stewardship, hospitality, you're in custody of things, and sharing of a potentially common culture because you share it with the public, and not exclusive property. So this is, I think, important, that what you have is not your exclusive property. Do not fetishize your holdings, because they are meant to be shared. That's why you have a museum. Otherwise, you just put it in the attic. So stewardship, hospitality, custody. Of course, you care for those things in your custody, under your care, under your stewardship. And then that you share these things with keeping in mind that it is a potentially common culture. I mean, this collection is potentially common culture, meaning it can be shared and not exclusive property. Of course, it is yours, you've acquired it, but it has to be shared. That's why you have a space for sharing. So the exclusivity is dissolved through curatorship, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so caring for, you care for it. You care also for the materials you have, so the integrity of materials, I think. So you have to, conserve, preserve, so to conserve to take care of the integrity of materials so that they don't deteriorate, so that they can also be presented properly to generations of people who would like to have access to the materials. But you also care for the ecology of relationships, meaning people who come to the space and also interact with the material. So that's the ecology, interrelationships, right? Of persons and things, of persons and persons, of things and things, and in fact of interspecies dapat, interspecies. So people, things, spirits, whatever. So this is the ecology that has to be aspired to, as opposed to isolation and alienation. So you don't separate things, just confine them to their precincts or whatever. So they have to be seen in an ecology that things are related to each other at some level. So this is to move away from isolation and alienation, which are our enemy, right? And then caring for, and also caring about, because you care, you bother. You bother because you feel it's important, it's urgent, so you care about things. So there is attentiveness, attentiveness. There's also responsibility and urgency. So on the one hand, there's reflection and of course action. So you care about things. You don't, you're not oblivious to what is happening around the world, around your world, around your environment. You care about it. When you care about things, you are attentive to this world, and you take responsibility because you feel it's urgent and proper to do so, ethical. It's yeah, urgent. So sensitivity to context and situation. I mean, the context both of the context of the material and also the context in which it is resituated. No? So sensitivity to context and situation. And then finally, you care about exploration of possibilities beyond what is like maybe typically conceived for the things and for the materials. No? So you explore afterlives of forms, meaning what else could be proposed for these forms, no? Through curatorial work and exhibitionary practice. No? So again, experiment is important to be able to extend the life of the form and maybe also open it up to other lives, no? Beyond what might be typically conceived for them by, let us say, normative discourse, such as art history or academic thinking, and so on and so forth. So importante yun because curatorial work is specific, no? While it benefits from academic work, it can also disengage from it, no? Especially if academic work becomes the source of orthodoxy, because sometimes it can be. I think it is. So curatorial work can move beyond the orthodoxy of academic work. So that's why it's important for us to move briskly or with agility between academic work and curatorial work, no? So I benefit from that because I do art history, but I also do curatorial work. So for me, my art historical background informs, of course, my curatorial work, but my curatorial work also questions the conclusions we reach in academic work. So I think the relationship between the two is productive, fertile, in fact. Yeah, at least for me. So let me now go through some of the examples. I mean, these are my ideas, and maybe I'll share you some projects I've had, I've done over the years. First, I worked at the National Museum when Cora Alvina was director. She asked me to she asked me to help her set up the National Gallery of Art. I was in UP, so I was seconded for 4 years I was loaned in a way to the National Museum to set it up. No? So I wanted to, well, the National Museum is an encyclopedic museum, meaning it has all sorts of materials on natural history, archaeology, anthropology, and fine art. No, fine art within quotations. So I wanted to do an art gallery that is responsive to that ecology of other things. So I wanted a mixture of objects and materials under the auspices of art. I didn't want an exclusively art exhibition because I thought that, that we should do something different given the knowledge we have about, the problematic nature of museological classification, right? So we need not fall back into the same typification, now, especially if we have the chance to do something different. So we did try to do something different, but when we left, they went back to the old thing. Anyway, that's for another seminar. So of course we know very well that this is the place for the spoliarium and of course the jewel of the crown, as it were, of the museum. But there was an introduction room that I did just to introduce the public to what can on how to navigate this space of art. So so here I juxtaposed an icon painting, colonial icon painting from the art collection, of course, and a facsimile of or reproduction of the Manunggul jar. The actual one is in the anthropology building, no? The finance building. So I wanted to begin the exhibition on art because the idea of art is problematic now in the context of a post-colonial situation. So what is art? I mean, the word art is retroactively applied to things that were not considered art anyway. So, but were as creative, but were equally creative. Anyway, so so I was looking at forms now. So and also the notion of the afterlife. So, well, the colonial moment introduced a different notion of the afterlife and a different way of depicting it, no? Through, this idea of the Trinity and also of the idea of heaven, earth, and hell, no? But the Manunggul jar offers a different cosmology of the afterlife, and I think we know the cosmology. This is a secondary burial, funerary jar, no? Yeah, secondary. No? So I wanted to juxtapose the two to introduce a shift in not only in the production of form during the colonial period, but also a different conception of the afterlife, and also to insist on the idea that there was creative form before colonial art, right? Yeah, and that this creative form is also found in the museum because there's an archaeology department. So here I combine archaeology and art, which I think is productive. Yeah, anyway, you won't see it anymore. So I also included in the introduction room the installation of Roberto Fileo and the afterlife of the myth of the afterlife of the Bagobo. So I wanted contemporary form through installation and mythology together, meaning that they should not be seen separately, but together. That the mythology is contemporary, and contemporary is mythology. So the two are come together in the work of Roberto Fileo. Now here, more pieces. Yeah. I also included, I don't know if you can see at the right sa bandang dulo, this is an itneg textile that I juxtaposed with Arturo Lu's abstraction. So I just wanted to, think of abstraction both in the indigenous form and also in the modern form. That it's not. And then there's, of course, a timeline that runs across the room. And then here we have the likha, which is the a graveyard object bearing the likeness of the dead. I situated it in the likha, I think from Calatagan, from the archaeology. This is the real one because there are several. In relation to the works of Luna, one Luna on the ruins of Pompeii. No? So I took liberties with those, no? Because both talk about remains, no? And also traces of a very deep past, no? So one in, of course, stone, the other one in painting. So different disciplines, different temporalities, but potentially related. No? And that they can be related curatorially, and one has to, exercise a bit of the imagination to do that, and also a bit of risk. And the people in the other divisions were thinking, why are you, getting our artifacts? I said, well, I mean, this is for the art exhibition, and they are in storage anyway, no? So why not, put it out? Yeah. These are nice paintings of Pompeii, no? When Luna visited the museum there. So it is also a museum within a museum, no? Of Pompeii. And then in one room, I also juxtaposed the two images from different religious traditions. The one is the sculpture of Saint James, the Moor Slayer, Santiago Matamoros, no? And then of course an artifact from the Islamic tradition, here. So, and then also a fragment of a retablo from I think the Miao in Bohol, and then a contemporary art form from Jose Tense Ruiz of a cart cathedral. Now, so I was juxtaposing these things, no, contemporary, colonial, archaeological, and so on and so forth. So Cora Alvina allowed me to do it, no? So it also takes some directorial license for the curator to experiment in the space. Not all directors will do that, no? But I was happy to work with Cora on this, no? And then before we finally transferred to the main building, I set up 5 exhibitions just to look at the art collection. So this is like some kind of a rehearsal of for the main building. So I looked at the collection. So I had through 5 exhibitions. So first is Influx, and this talks about modernity. So I looked at I think 4 modernists in the collection, but I focused on how interdisciplinary they were. No? That they were not just painters. For instance, Ramon Estela here with this painting as part of the neo-realist group was also a filmmaker. No? So I included his film. So modernism in this way was, more expansive and not confined to one discipline. No? H.R. Ocampo, for instance, was a poet and writer of script, and in radio. And Juan Arellano was an architect. In fact, he co-designed the legislative building and some buildings nearby, like the post office and of course, the Metropolitan Theater. So this is the Arellano. He was an impressionist, no? But he was an architect too. So I wanted that interplay of disciplines within modernism. No? So this is the view of, I think, So it was largely HR with his poetry and script, and Ramon Estela with his painting and film, and Juan Arellano with his paintings and architectural plans. And there was intimation about the self in Philippine art. So the diorama, I think, of Batanes in relation to Ricarte Proganan's painting, or Abdul Marie Imao Sarimanop motif, which was used in the 1974 Miss Universe beauty pageant, which I show here. And then a social realist painting by Renato Habulan, social realism being opposed to, the cultural policy of Imelda Marcos. Now, so this was a relay of images. And also, I think, Likha again is here, and some works of Jose Rizal. No? So, like the idea of the hero as artist, but also as an heir of a deep past. No? The incarnation was about the body. So you have works of Julie Luch. So these are all pieces from the collection. I think this is Onib Olmed, Manansala, sorry. And then I also got ethnographic artifacts from the previous dioramas of the museum. They were in storage, so I looked at the storage. So that's also one important thing to do, to look at the storage. No, there might be interesting things over there. So I looked at it in relation to the formation of an indigenous imagination through the diorama, and then of course to the work of Carlos Francisco. This, I think, the documentary of Hudhud. And I think there is some sketches of Coching, Francisco Coching, the comics artist. So the some are borrowed works, no, a few, to complement or supplement the material. And then you have, I think, the mummified remains, and then the X-ray of that. I just found it interesting to have the X-ray of the mummy. You know? And then inclination is about the other or strangers. Like this one is unknown, so the perfect stranger, unknown artist, undated, unknown subject, and so on and so forth. Again, the Ruiz Cathedral here, Nena Sagil's abstraction, which is juxtaposed with meteorites, no? Extraterrestrial objects from the geology department. No? So the geology department, they're called Rizalites, and this is the cosmos of outer space of Nena Sagil, the female abstractionist. Also, some pieces from the St. Louis exhibition that have been, that have come back, and they are in the possession of the museum. I was also interested in the diorama as a medium. So there was a mouse in the museum. I asked the zoology department to do a taxidermy of the mouse. Yeah, I mean, also a stranger, right? The mouse. And then finally, inculcation, the museum as nation. This is the last of the 5. I also proposed a different name for the museum. I called it the Tipunan ng Bayan, not really Museo, no? Because Tipunan is, place for gathering, collecting, and it also resonates with Katipunan, the revolutionary movement. No? So I thought that the museum is a tipunan, no? And if it's a national museum, then it's a tipunan ng bayan. But anyway, this was not adopted. So I just took the risk of renaming, because you have to do that too, because words have, tenacious, very tenacious. You have to dissolve them by proposing new terminology. I mean, even if temporarily so. Yeah. So I thought of the tipunan as a place of fragments, because museums are, collection constitute fragments, to form an imagination of the whole. Like fragments of this and that become national identity, and then you wonder, how did that happen? Right? That these fragments become the imagination of something fully formed, like the nation. So this is part of a speculation, a theoretical reflection. So there were like fragments of the memorabilia of Fernando Amarsolo that I found in the museum, the unfinished painting, I mean, some things in her studio, also I think a death mask, barong, his cane, his belt, I just played around with them. Also, I did a cabinet of curiosities from the collection, from, entomology, insects, or the portrait of Galo Ocampo, the modernist who was also National Museum director, and so on and so forth. No? So this, no? So the medium of the fragment also that I wanted to pursue. And then there is the, maybe this might be, I'm just quickly run through these projects because we're running out of time. There was this Self and Other exhibition project from Asia Europe Foundation, and they wanted an articulation in Manila. So I again worked with Cora when Cora moved to the Met. She also asked me to not to work at the Met, but to do an exhibition of an articulation of Self and Other portraits from Asia and Europe. So I proposed BISA, the idea of potency, potent presences, the figure as potent presence. So this is an exhibition at the Met, and I looked at the self in relation to time. So I have 4 themes. First is Ibai or Afterlife. The self leaves traces in others, the vision of the future and the unknown. So you have Phileo here, the Bukidnon mythology through the eyes of a tourist, and Ophelia Teke's rearticulation of the crucifixion in relation to, I think, the coup d'etat in the 80s during the administration of Corazon Aquino. Yeah, this is so some visions of the afterlife. So again, I mixed, I cannot go through this in detail, just to say that there was a mixture of contemporary art with other materials like ethnographic materials, the bulul, and the work of Alfredo Roses here on the right, and ancestor, and Chinese ancestor, and also a work of Juni, a sculpture of Juni. And then, of course, Amor Solos. I really like this work of woman tossing to the fire the bulul, or not really the bulul, but the native figure as the Philippines was transitioning to a Catholicism here. No? So things were burned. I mean, so a colonial moment is inaugurated. No? Yeah, and some talisman, Rizal's bust. So there's also Ganap Here and Now. The self lives among others, with Gaston Damag's melting bulol over time, anthropometric pictures, installation by Lani Maestro, and so on, or a painting from an armed revolutionary who painted in the mountains. No? Yeah. And also this, I asked Louis Cordero to paint the opening sequence of his comics narrative called Nardong Tae. It's Nardong Tae. The power of Nardo came from shit from outer space. Anyway, it's a funny comics, but I asked him to paint on the wall. Now here, so the opening sequence of Nardong Tae, of course, coming from Nardong Putik, right? But here, the power of the self comes from outer space shit, no? Okay. Anyway, and then there is this Andro Cunanan video, the Filipino who killed Gianni Versace. Yeah, this was a film on that. The shoes of Nora Honor, I borrowed from a fan of Nora Honor. So anyway, this is Tuina, Time and Again, History in the Making. The self transforms through others. So this is some political images of struggle and transformation, like the social realist works of Orlando Castillo, and then the photography of Vijay Villafranca, the work of artists from Los Angeles, a poster of Lino Broca's Manila sa Makolkol ang Liwanag, and early work of Benedicto Cabrera, especially the one on the left is Ang Tao. No? And of course, this is also the work of Benedicto Cabrera, a portrait of Flor Contemplacion, juxtaposed with A Woman from the Elite by Fernando Amarsolo in two poses. Yeah, in two poses. I think Felicing Tirona, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and more of the Lira Garciliano and Jerry Tan. And then maybe the last, Danas, no? I think this is the last project. I wanted to work on Philippine aesthetics. So what are some of the categories of Philippine aesthetics or Philippine creative forms? So Danas is experience. So I looked at, these are this series of 5 as well at the CCP. This is self-funded, a self-funded project at the CCP. While I was working at the National Museum, because CCP was close by. So I said, maybe I can do something at the CCP. So first is scene, meaning intricacy. So I worked with Rodel Tapaya on your left, and on your right is Lito Acasio, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Lito Acasio, who does this interesting landscape paintings with that level of intricacy. So, but I also included textile from Aklan, of the Suksuk method. Sapin is layer with Roberto Fileo here, and Temptation Island, the film. Descartes improvisation. So I had the work of Jose Tense Ruiz again, and Edson Armenta, a contemporary artist who did traps, who did sculptures that referenced traps in the jungle. He was an interesting sculptor. He died young, but in fact, I've been wanting to do an exhibition on Edson Armenta, but I couldn't find his works. And not so many. This one I borrowed from a collector. But beautiful work. Palabas means performance, but also migration. So this is the work of Alfredo Aquilisan, like their belongings. Alfredo and Isabel Aquilisan, the belongings of the family compressed to become it's like minimal sculpture with maximal content, and of course morphing into an installation of migrant possessions. I think at this time they were migrating to Australia. Yeah, and then it's the house in Las Bañas. And Palabas, of course, has something to do with performance. So I also included billboard painting from Tondo, which at that time was a dying art, and now it's already gone. So I went to and I tried to buy it, but I tried to buy this billboard, but the guy said, "You think you can take it?" No, it's interesting because billboards are all palimpsests. No, they paint over and paint new ones. Like this one is the Da Vinci Code. This is Superman. No? So I don't know where this is. I have to look for it. But I think beautiful painting. So, and then finally Ginhawa, it is about its breath in Visayan, but it's also well-being generally. So I just focused on one project of Jokno Pasilan, who initiated a beautification project in San Vicente in Palawan. He asked the villagers to just, decorate their houses in whatever way they could and photograph them. So it's really, modest, simple way of finding, living with well-being in a village in Palawan. Yeah. So these interesting pictures of that. I think that's it. So many thanks, and I can take questions from the floor. So maraming salamat po.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that wonderful talk. Applications of curatorial and conceptualization. So we have some questions here already. So would like to encourage the participants to send in their questions. So the first question, sir, is what makes a good curation?
Well, it's a difficult thing to sort out, but I think more than good or bad, maybe we should look at curatorial work in terms of weak and strong. No? Maybe weak and strong if the curatorial project is weak, or if it's strong. So it's strong if it's, again, attentive, sensitive to material, also has ability to maybe think out of the box, or to take certain risks with form, curatorial form, as well as selection of material. Weak is to just, follow the typical, the typical expectations, affirm certain orthodoxies, and not complicate things. For me, that's weak. Yeah, because that kind of curation will just, will not move the needle of thinking, but will just affirm. So for me, it's of course important to affirm at one level, but one also has to think of ways to offer new ideas and to complicate what has been established or what has been found to be tried and tested. So curation is risk. So if it is low risk, I think it is weak. But if there is significant risk, I think it is strong.
Sir, based on these examples that you have shown, of course, they vary, from 2D to 3D type of exhibition. So I'm just wondering, what are the key ideas and texts that make up the conceptual framework of an exhibition? Like, what should be included, or the ideas
in the proposal, Ikin? Ganun.
Yeah, I think in the proposal to start.
Well, of course, your thesis, you begin with an anxiety. Don't begin with a theory. Now, that's why I begin with the anxiety. This is also how I teach my MA research classes. You begin with anxiety. Don't begin with a grand theory to impose on a material. You think of an anxiety, viscerally, what troubles you, or what excites you, or what fascinates you, or what strikes you. Then you begin with that, and then you. So that's one, the anxiety, and second is conversation with other people or other texts that express the same. So in a way, there is maybe literature, maybe there is common experience, and so on and so forth. So you develop also that, like a discursive constellation of similar anxieties. And then I'm sure these anxieties would be reflected upon more formally, maybe by theory. Maybe by theory. So that becomes part of a conversation, the theory. But you don't begin with the theory, you begin with something embodied. You embody it because it troubles you. But it's not only you who's troubled by this. There are other people who feel the same way. So you're in conversation with them, and maybe a theorist has formalized this in some kind of theoretical proposition. Then that proposition becomes part of the constellation as well. So I think those three, and then the curatorial form, as I mentioned earlier. So how do you flesh that out? Because they will not remain as ideas, right? Or as anxieties. They have to be translated into curatorial form. And curatorial form doesn't have to be an exhibition. It can be a range of things, like a seminar, a reading session, a publication, and so on and so on. But if you want an exhibition, then do an exhibition. But you have to settle in your, you have to be sure why you want an exhibition. It should not be seen as a default form, the exhibition. It's not a default curatorial form. There are other curatorial possibilities besides the exhibition. But if it's the exhibition, then you go ahead. But you have to know why it is the exhibition. So I think those are the things that have to be included. Yeah.
Yeah. So many of our participants at this year 2 are really startup museums, from universities. So what would be what are the necessary steps? Like the goal is to set up an exhibition in their universities or art spaces or what have you. So more importantly, is to have the research, included in all these stages. So what advice can you give for, let's say, startup museums who are just beginning to set up their own exhibitions later on, or some of our participants are still in the conceptualization stage? So how, what advice could you give them?
I think look at the collection thoroughly and try to create, to conceptualize what the collection is all about. No? So what you have first. No? So look at what you have and do research on it and so on and so forth. So that's one aspect. No? And you also look at your space. No? How can you transfer the collection to an exhibition space? No? So because you don't have to show everything, right? You can also show things incrementally, or you can do things, you can show them in cycles. No? So you also think of the rhythm of the life of the museum across time. No? Hindi naman one time, big time, di ba? So you think of a certain rhythm of playing out the collection over time. So you study the collection, you think of a curatorial form, and you also think of a rhythm in which to play out the collection. I think you begin with that, the research. And then if you know your collection well, then you can try to maybe expand a bit at some point to initiate conversations with maybe other collections, right? Maybe you can borrow or commission a contemporary artist to respond to your collection. But maybe this is for later, when you have fully understood what you have. So basically, yun lang naman. Be modest lang, no? When you begin, it could just be a small exhibition of object lessons, no? Some objects in selected objects in the collection that you think are symptoms of what the collection is all about. Maybe a series of 5, but you closely read the object, no? And then try to say that, like in acupuncture, diba? I mean, you just prick one part, but it actually has effect on the whole body. So maybe I always use that as a metaphor. I mean, so you choose few objects that can be seen as symptoms of a larger context. As you saw in the National Museum, the room was not filled, no? A few, just likha and the painting. That is already a cosmos.
Yeah. Okay, this is also another question from Alex de los Santos. He wanted to know the basics, of curation, because some of the SUCs are struggling, for instance, and they're planning to set up a museum of pottery and bamboos. Okay. So what suggestions can you give for starters when all they have now is a sampling of material culture like pottery, basket, ceramics, from when the university was a trade school? Alex is from the University of Antique.
Ayo. So yeah, good morning, Alex. I think I think one way to do it is to propose certain categories, no? In which you can organize this range of materials, no? So, and then from each category can be represented by a few, and then I think that is already maybe an initial map, no? An initial cartography of the collection, and then maybe you can present that first. Na categories lang muna with some few examples, and then later, and then when you get used to the categories, then maybe you can complicate these categories, you can add more categories, and then you can also replenish the examples over time. But maybe the mapping should occur first, what is the initial cartography at least of the
Collection.
collection. Yun lang muna, no? Na do not be pressured to put everything in, di ba? So ano muna, mga categories and symptoms of the categories, and I think that's it. And then try to familiarize yourself with those, and then at some point maybe take more risks. Yun lang.
Yeah, so from our conversation to our participants, we have level 1 in year 1, no, yung lectures of Sir Patrick. This is already advanced, no? So maybe you can refer to the year 1 webinar on, I gave a talk on curating an exhibition, and then level 2 was Sir Patrick on exhibition, curating an exhibition. So this is a bit cerebral, as some of you have noted, no? So, but we're trying to ground it as much as possible, no? So, so we move on to the other questions from YouTube. There's a question on, is it fair to say that curating involves exerting intellectual authority over your collections? In cases wherein such authority is tested and limited, how should one respond?
Well, yeah, it's a proposition also involves authority, no? Because it's responsibility. So you risk, power is exercised. Power is exercised because not everyone can do it, right? But you take responsibility, and so you exercise power productively and hopefully ethically. But you also invite critique by doing that. So I think one should not shy away from responding to contestation or critique because you invite it, no? Because power always invites it. This is not really to fight the critique, but to engage with the critique. No? And then if it's a productive one, then it could also enhance or complexify your initial thoughts. No? I mean, in fact, that is a testament of, maybe a strong curatorial work. You are able to provoke engagement from the public. They are able to respond to you in the same spirit. So you have to welcome that. So you maybe look at it in terms of hospitality and generosity rather than in terms of, let us say, cancellation or taking down something. But it's part of it. No? It's the criticality is an important part of the life of a museum, because the museum is a public sphere, no? And the public sphere invites discussion and debate, communicative action, right? Communicative action mediated by objects and, of course, discourses. So yeah, so I think the second part of the question is, how do you respond? Something like that?
How do you respond if your intellectual authority is limited?
Is limited by the critique or something.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you respond to it, in the spirit in which you conceptualize the exhibition. But if you realize that, there was an oversight or that you didn't think of this, and then you have to be, I think it should welcome the opportunity to unfold the critique, into the life of the exhibition. Yeah, it's part of the content, because the critique is part of the content. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. From Marilyn Doblado, she's asking if juxtaposition can also be applied when curating for history museums, or is it just for specific to art?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, of course, everything is possible, no? In curatorial work. So even in historical exhibitions, you can take certain risks, but this is depends on the authority or the governing agent in the museum, because some historians are very empiricists, no? and positive way. So they wouldn't allow for things that deviate from, let us say, established facts. Yeah. But this is not a history book, it's a museum. So the experience is different. No? So again, there is tension between curatorial work and academic historical work. So you have really to sort out the tension. But yeah, I think so. Well, some historians feel, for instance, that art is not primary material. No? I mean, not primary data. But for art historians, art is primary data.
Yes.
Right. So, the ganon din naman dito. So, what is curatorial work? Is that historical work?
Yeah. Okay, from Kelly Ramos. Hi daw, sir. When you juxtapose contemporary work with a museum collection, do you commission new work? What does the budget look like in such exhibition?
Yeah, hi Kelly. We commission. Sometimes it's not commission, we borrow. We look at the body of work of the artist, and then if we find something kindred or something that can speak to our collection, then we borrow it. If we have budget, we commission. But of course, given the constraints of Philippine museums, commissions are not really part of the budgets, right? Of a typical museum in the Philippines. So we have modest commission, or we also maybe we can also, sometimes you can find a patron who will commission on behalf of the exhibition of the institution, or I mean, and then you can also commission and compensate not through money, but I mean, because the economy is not exclusively restricted in terms of itong binabayaran financially. No, pwede naman that if the artist naman sees this as a good opportunity for him or her to produce new work, then he or she can also self-finance. Pwede din naman yun. I mean, it's how you discuss it with the artist. This is not to exploit the artist, but this is to just create a relationship and maybe a proper context for the collaboration. Now, because and then you can of course offer certain things like maybe you can finance materials, a bit of the materials, or you can also say that you will do a publication, right? I mean, so these things will be good for the artist too, because this is a unique experience for him or her to be working in a museum, especially if the artist is exclusively just with the market. No? So if this is an opportunity for him or her to be part of a museum initiative, and I think it's the investment for him or her is good enough. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have more questions coming in. Another question, do you have any experience handling sensitive matters such as artifacts of human rights victims? What is the ideal way to exhibit them?
A human rights specifically, wala, no? I haven't done work on human rights, but well, generally, I think sensitivity to different, because there are many moving parts now. So you have to be sensitive to these many moving parts. So on the part of the maybe the historical context, you have to be very broad about it. Maybe look at things structurally, not in terms of a kind of partisanship, but structurally why this thing happened. So if there's a broad context, then I think that's good, that's complex. And then of course sentiment of the violated also has to be sensitively staged, so that's not to maybe appropriate indiscriminately or to exploit the drama or the trauma. No? So that is also important. And thirdly, I think to expand the context. No, not just focus on one or two, but a broader. I mean, look at more articulations of, let us say, the violence, no? Or maybe not only here in the Philippines, but also elsewhere, and other opinions too, no? Even those you do not agree with. That's important, no? So that the work is more political rather than just partisan. Because if it's partisan, then it can be easily instrumentalized by maybe one party or maybe one institution, one ideology. But if a broad political work will include very discrepant perspectives. So I think that's the promise of curatorial work, to offer a broad political context and not to just focus on a partisan position. Yeah.
From Maria Asuncion Mirales Hihe, yung question po niya, what are your insights about displays that show elements of contrasting ideas? Example, dining implements together with footwear in one time, but both elements belonging to one era and depicting a common feel, like buhay sa bukid. So contrasting implements, no? May dining and then dining implements, then you have footwear in one time, but they belong to one era. How do you approach this in terms of contrasting ideas and curatorial approach?
Well, you spent time in trying to stage the commonality, because you say it's common anyway, but at the same time you also spend time in trying to sensitively stage the contrast so that they don't become like randomly put together, no? So I think you deal with both parts of the equation, meaning the contrast and the commonality, no? So that is the curatorial challenge, how to stage both with sensitivity, no? So kaya naman yun, no? Because the milieu is diverse, no? Diba? The milieu is diverse. So, if it's like a lifestyle, no? If it's a lifestyle, this is the problem of lifestyle exhibitions, diba? Sometimes the lifestyle focuses on especially if the donor is from the elite, no? The lifestyle that is in the exhibition is the lifestyle of the elite, no? And then so you don't see the lifestyle of the village, whatever, no? So but if you have a variety of materials, then it's better because you get to present a broad, no, range of articulations of everyday life with contrast and commonality in mind.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there are still questions coming in. It's being received by our staff. So for the last 2 years, we had COVID, and still COVID in our midst, no? With all the threats of Omicron and all that. So how do we see the direction of curation post-COVID world, and how to engage the audiences despite this situation? So we know that many museums closed down. Some museums took the online, no? And others are starting to open up with the relaxing of the COVID restrictions. So what do you think is now the direction of curation, no, for now, no? And is there such thing as digital curation when you don't have the museums yet in place or an exhibition in place?
Yeah, I think throughout the COVID period, we tried to experiment with the digital format, and the experiment, of course, depended on our access to it and also our capacity to navigate the technology. So we have learned lessons now. I think the lessons have been learned from the digital format, that we can, of course, use it as a platform through, let us say, to deliver programs and also to deliver exhibitions. and sometimes also to curate exhibitions digitally. But this requires a good understanding of how the medium works, no? Because the digital medium is not just a some kind of an empty vessel which you fill up with exhibition content from the analog period, di ba? So it's a different field altogether. So siguro kulang pa yung pag-unawa sa digital technology to be able to really propose an interesting digital curation. But we will get there, I suppose, through practice. The other way for the digital platform to support museum work is to convey or distribute archival material of the museum, if you can distribute it or if you can make it available to the public. The collection or some maybe low-res images of the collection or maybe documentation of previous exhibitions. So the archive, I think, is important. No, the digital distribution of the archive is important in the life of the institution. And the COVID period made us realize that the archive is not only something that is supplemental or not really central, because the archive during the COVID period, at least initially, was the face of the was the articulation of the museum. I mean, we at the Vargas we mined the archive and presented programs digitally through the archive. So the archive was the museum.
Okay, sir. So I started with the Q&A earlier. What makes a good curation, no? And you said it's not really good or bad, but the process of setting up and providing a good encounter with its public and its audience.
Mhm.
So is there like what you call as challenges in curation, especially for startup museums? How will they overcome all of these challenges when setting up their own exhibition?
Well, maybe the challenge of
Aside from funds.
aside from funds now, which is a given. The challenge is the curatorial imagination. Yeah, I think you begin with that. That doesn't really require funding, no? Just to keep on. I mean, you have to spend time, because that's the formative part. And I suggest to do a series of workshops among the staff, and maybe if it's an educational institution, maybe some scholars in the different disciplines who might have sympathy for the materials you have. Maybe a historian, anthropologist, siguro. But if it's in a museum, siguro the staff, no, and then kung wala namang mga tao within the museum na pwedeng kang collaborate with, pwede naman outside, no? Look at the community also, and assemble a workshop group, no, to think through the collection. So you keep on doing that, and then you sharpen a curatorial imagination I think you begin with that, and then you set it up according to the curatorial, vision. Yeah, I think I mean, I cannot anticipate all the challenges, right? Because they are very specific. But one important thing to do is to invest in the curatorial imagination. I think kahit na walang budget yan, it might look shabby or let us say not so well produced. You can sense that there is imagination. And for me, that is a good beginning.
Yeah. Well, for the startup museums, our participants, Museo Kordilyera started with existing research from the faculty. So they have gone to the field, they acquired artifacts, they did research on these objects. It's continuing until now. No, right now, Museo Kordilyera is doing housekeeping to work on its collections. No, kasi we are looking for the biographies of these objects, its provenance, and looking at holistically what we have in the collections. So doon din sinasabi ni Sir Patrick na you have to look at your collections and what research have been done and you need to do to create that curatorial narrative or even the imagination.
Minsan lang kasi Ikin, may gaps dyan na kahit research hindi kaya i-fill, no? Kung wala talagang information. I think here, one can resort to a level of poetry. No? Parang the object becomes the primary data. Even independent of research, kung walang research. So it's just the object. No? So then you can describe the object creatively or you ask people to respond to it subjectively. Okay rin yan. I mean, you also don't have to be too dependent on academic information. Kasi dapat may balance din between academic information or research and embodied response. Di ba? Kasi hindi naman specialized ang public. Hindi naman lahat specialists ang public ninyo. Di ba? Yung iba talagang visceral lang din yung approach to the basket. Diba? Hindi naman kailangan tiruray ba yan? Diba? Ano ba yan? Bakit maganda yan? Diba? So they also cannot compare. Diba? Wala naman silang ganun. So balansehin nyo rin yung embodied response with academic information.
Sir, last question na lang from our participant. What kind of information is included in the exhibition content? No, ito yung tanong niya. What should be included?
Medyo curatorial style yan. Ano? Ako, I don't include so much. I don't include so much in the room, on the wall. No? Pwede naman yan ilagay sa handout siguro, or maybe a QR code, whatever, no? It can be accessed later, or maybe at home, or what. But I don't like people reading first and then looking at the work. No? That is, I think, that hijacks the experience. So my texts are largely evocative lang. This to set an atmosphere, create an intellectual tone, whatever. And then a bit of information, if, basic. And then also I give the chance to the viewer also to experience the work subjectively, and then maybe lead him or her to more information if he or she would like to have more. Siguro available din naman yon. But experience is important in the encounter with the object, of course, with discourse made accessible at some point. Yeah.
So basic text, and will you give advice on how long should your caption be, for instance, in an exhibition, to have that feel of the exhibition? Meron po bang bilang or?
Kasi sa art, mas hindi ganon. Iba sa ethnography. Iba sa antro, di ba? So, kasi ang antro, marami ring moving parts like source community, di ba? And then, of course, the ethnography. So, yung art kasi, debate din kasi yan because feeling nila the art can speak for itself, no? Doesn't have to need elucidation of context. So sa akin naman, basic technical information. I also don't put the biography of the artist. No? For me, very basic lang talaga. In Vargas, it's the main text for the section and then just technical information. And then we support it with, we have a catalog. We also have an education guide. Available naman din yon sa website. Na? So, pero gusto ko kasi minsan lang din pumunta sa museum. Gusto ko maximize din yung experience na yon.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I think we answered all of the questions that were sent to us. Do you have last words for our participants?
1 minute ikin na kasi nandito yung grab. Ayun lang, don't be afraid not to begin the exhibition, and you can begin lightly but also sensitively with what you have and what you know. But moving forward, you will be better served if you think in terms of scale, in terms of also modules. You think also in a modular way, and also incrementally, no? So that you don't, you're not too pressured to do everything at once, and you do not overthink, and you do not try too hard. That's the worst thing, if you try too hard.
Overstretched, overthought. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you so much, sir. I won't keep you. I know you have another appointment. Thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. No, thank you so much, sir.
Maraming salamat.
Bye-bye. All right. So for our participants, may huling question si Kelly dito. What is the contradiction between academic and curatorial work? Kelly, when you say academic work, this is really focusing on the hardcore research that you can provide for your exhibition, which I think is vital for creating your exhibition narrative. Kasi magkaiba yung field namin ni Sir Patrick. He's more into art and we are on more ethnography, no? So in ethnography, you have to provide all of this context, the content, and all this information, no, in writing your exhibition plan or your narrative. So I think for me, like yung sinabi niya, may balance doon sa research, may balance doon sa kanyang curatorial imagination, which I think is a good practice, no? So I would like to request our participants, I will just share our screen. This is our museum website, and those we have archive webinars already in place from year 1, no? So if you are, our talk today is a bit cerebral, no? This is advanced museology. I would like to revert back to you the curation from level 1 in year 1. This is the talk on my talk on conceptualizing and curating museum exhibitions. I think I laid out yung pinaka-basic concepts on how you can conceptualize and curate museum exhibitions. And then we move forward to level 2 of the museum management training in curation. So we had Sir Patrick Flores. This is part 2 on curating museum exhibition. So here, he gave a more detailed application on how you can curate your exhibition. And then for year 2 of the museum management training, we had currently year 2. So nandito na lahat yung mga talk, no? So again, we'll put the talk of Sir Patrick there, no? So these webinars are into stages, no? They are crafted in such a way you have different levels, no, of understanding from the basic to advanced, no, in relation to curation. So nagtatanong kayo siguro na ang year 1 is actually the content is different from year 2, no? Magkaiba sila kasi they go into stages, no? Advanced, no? From basic to advanced stages of the topics that we have crafted for year 2. So if you are in year 1 of museum management training and decided not to continue for year 2 because 80% of our participants are new participants, no? And then the 20% are returning participants. And for those who were not able to join this year, you can actually listen to all the webinars. They are archived and they are updated, no, weekly, if you are unable officially to register for Year 2 Museum Management Training. Okay, so all of this are now available at our museum website. You can watch it on YouTube. You can also watch that in our FB page. And makakatulong naman sa inyo ito, no? Kasi we still are receiving queries if they can join Year 2, no? But we are already in the middle, May tapos June na, no? The last 2 parts of our museum training. Yeah, so thank you so much for all of our participants. Please be committed, no, to finish until the end, and then we are planning the June-July event to invite you to Baguio to do hands-on, and also planning for your exhibition more on the hands-on training, no, for all of the topics that, for some of the topics that we have discussed. So in the chat box, we would appreciate if you can send in your brief assessment for this survey to help us monitor, and of course, to see your feedback regarding your session. So tomorrow, we will have another interesting talk on writing text and interpreting museum exhibitions, no? So we are fortunate to have Ms. Marian Pastor Roses from her busy schedule to give us time tomorrow to talk about this topic. So this is a continuation of Sir Patrick's talk, no? So this is now how to write your captions, how you can interpret your collection and turn them into exhibitions. So again, please answer our feedback form, and we'll see you tomorrow. Same time, 10 o'clock, and we have sent the YouTube links and the Zoom registration for this for tomorrow's session. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.